You're avoiding projects because the gatekeepers say there's only one right way to do woodworking. Never use pocket holes, mill your own lumber, dovetails or nothing. I have a word for these people, but let's just call them the fun police. And I'm about to prove that 5 of their most sacred rules are complete nonsense. Now, these aren't safety rules. Those do matter. These are rules that the gatekeepers insist on, but all they're doing is putting up barriers that put off new woodworkers from making the projects they want. Rule number 1, you must measure everything precisely with a tape measure. Now, when I started woodworking, I'd use my tape measure for everything. After all, we've all heard the saying, measure twice, cut once. So I thought that was the right way to do it. But here's what nobody tells you about that approach. Every time you use a tape measure, you're introducing potential for error. You might read it wrong, your pencil line might be too thick, your tape might move while you're marking, and suddenly your millimetre precision is turned into a 3 or 4 millimetre mistake. What actually works better? Well, instead of measuring with numbers on a tape, measure with the actual piece. Builders have used this method for centuries. It's called referential measuring. You use the piece you're working with as the reference, or a spare bit of wood marked with your measurements, and that's called a story stick. Let me show you what I mean. Say I'm building a simple drawer box and I need to cut the back to fit between the 2 sides. The proper way says measure the opening with a tape measure, write it down, transfer that to your workpiece and then cut. So what do you think I do instead? Watch this. I take my workpiece, hold it directly in the opening where it needs to go and mark it right there. Then cut. No tape measure, no chance of misreading numbers, no transferring measurements. The piece is exactly the right size because I measured it exactly where it needs to fit. I've built entire projects using this method and they fit together perfectly every time. So use your tape measure for cutting standalone pieces, but when something absolutely has to fit, use referential measuring. Rule number 2, using pocket hole screws isn't proper woodworking. In fact, it's kind of cheating. Now let's be honest, traditional joinery is a wonderful thing. But the gatekeepers will tell you that if you're using pocket holes, you're not a real woodworker, and that is absolute rubbish. Traditional joinery takes time to learn and requires specific tools. A perfectly cut mortise and tenon that goes together flawlessly is lovely, but it takes a long time and practice and patience. And for someone who just wants to build a simple bookcase or a cabinet, being told you need to master a bunch of joints first is intimidating. It's just wrong. The pocket hole jig changed everything for millions of woodworkers. It's inexpensive, it's easy to learn in about 10 minutes and creates joints that are strong. Not sort of strong, actually strong. I've built countless projects using pocket holes. Drawer boxes, face frames for cabinets, workbenches. And you know what? They're rock solid. They've been in use for years and the joints haven't failed because the strength isn't about how traditional the method is, it's about choosing the right joint for the job and executing it properly. Here's the reality. Pocket holes let you build strong projects quickly with minimal investment. You can pick up a decent pocket hole jig for less than £50 and learn it in an afternoon. And you can start building actual projects this weekend. That's why pocket holes are so useful. Rule number 3. You aren't a proper woodworker if you don't mill your own lumber. The gatekeepers love this one. They'll tell you that real woodworkers buy rough sawn timber, joint one face flat, plane it to thickness and rip it to width. They wouldn't be seen dead buying pre-prepared lumber because, I don't know. Here's what they don't tell you. Even a cheap jointer costs around £250 and a thicknesser another £300 to £400. So before you've even made your first project, you're being told you need to spend over £500 just to be considered legitimate. And yes, milling your own lumber gives you flexibility. You can choose your thickness, you can work around defects. But it also requires significant workshop space. It creates a lot of noise and dust, and it takes time away from actually building. So what do I do for most of my projects? I buy PAR timber. That's planed all round. In the States, this is called S4S, or surfaced on 4 sides. It comes already flat and square from the timber yard or big box store. And you know what? As long as you pick out the straight ones, it works brilliantly. I've built bird boxes, side tables, shop furniture, all from prepared timber. The projects are strong, they're square, and they look good. Because being a proper woodworker isn't about milling your own lumber. It's about making things. Things that work and last. So here's the reality. If you've got the space and budget for milling equipment and you enjoy that part of the process, then brilliant. But if you'd rather spend your time building, buy prepared lumber and start making projects. You're still a proper woodworker. Anybody who says different is an idiot. As woodworkers, we all share a passion for this craft. But many of us also suffer from an addiction, the inability to throw any pieces of wood away. I got to the point where I was getting overwhelmed by the amount of scrap wood I kept in my little workshop. So I came up with a system that helped get it all back under control. I've put together a free guide that shows you exactly how to set it up in your workshop that will save you hours of digging around. I put this off for years thinking I'd just remember where things were. Don't make my mistake. Click on the link in the description now to sort your scrap pile in an afternoon, and you'll always be able to find the pieces you want when you need them. So far we've covered measuring, joints and timber preparation. Now here's the rule that stops more beginners than any other. Rule number 4. Never use construction lumber for woodworking projects. There are those that tell you that construction timber, your basic pine or whitewood from the builder's merchant or big box store, is only for framing houses or partition walls. They'll say it's too soft, too knotty, too cheap, and using it for furniture makes you look like an amateur. And what they're really saying is you should only work with expensive hardwoods like them. Now, don't get me wrong, oak, maple, walnut, whatever. Those are beautiful woods, but they're also expensive. You can easily spend 30, 40, sometimes £50 or more on a single piece depending on the size. Construction timber though, you can pick it up at a big box store for a few pounds. And as long as you pick through the piles to find the straight bits and work with it properly, it makes perfectly good furniture. See this side table? This was built entirely from construction pine. Cost me about £10 in materials and it's been in daily use for years. It won't be to everyone's taste, but that's the point. Make things that you like and don't worry about what some bloke on the internet thinks. Even me. The thing is, expensive timber doesn't automatically make you a better woodworker. What matters is your design, the care you put into preparation and how you put it all together. The wood just needs to do the job you're asking it to do. Look, if you want to work with hardwoods and you can afford them, then go for it. But if you're on a budget or just starting out, don't let anyone tell you that construction lumber isn't good enough. Make sure you pick the straight boards and design around the knots, or just embrace them. The more you build, the faster you'll learn, and you'll actually finish things instead of waiting until you can afford the proper wood to get started. Rule number 5. Dovetails are the best joinery for drawers. This is the big one. The gatekeepers absolutely love this rule because hand-cut dovetails have become this badge of honour in woodworking. They'll tell you that if you're not using dovetails for your drawer boxes, you're cutting corners and your drawers will eventually fall apart. Now, dovetails are brilliant joints. They're strong, they look great, and they've been in use for centuries. I'm not knocking them at all. But here's what nobody mentions. They take time to master. And for a beginner who just wants to build a chest of drawers or some shop storage, being told you need to learn dovetails first is another massive barrier. The truth is that there are far simpler joints that work just as well for drawer boxes. It really depends on what you want them to look like rather than their ability to work well. I've built dozens of drawer boxes using nothing more than a simple rebated joint. That's where you cut a groove in one piece and the other piece locks into it. You add some glue and a couple of pins, you're done. I've built even more with butt joints and screws. In fact, the drawers in my workshop were built like this and they've been in daily use for years. They hold heavy tools, they get opened and closed constantly, and not a single one has failed. What really matters for a drawer box is the joint needs to resist the pulling forces when you open it. A rebated joint does that perfectly well because the wood interlocks. A butt joint works because the screws holding it together can handle more pulling force than it would take to open the drawer. They'll hold long after the wood itself would fail. Look, if you want to learn dovetails because you find them satisfying to cut, then brilliant. Done well, they're beautiful and they're worth learning if you want to. But if you just want to build some drawers this weekend, use a simple joint. Add some glue and pins or screws and get on with it. Your drawers will work perfectly well and you'll have a finished project in a few hours. Now, we've talked about using pocket holes and simple joints to build strong projects, but most beginners waste money at the hardware store because there's one critical detail about wood fixings that nobody explains. So check out this video next where I'll break down exactly which ones to use and when, so you can stop guessing and start building with confidence.